On part 1 of our SIGA install, we got most of the sheeting hung in the upstairs and garage ceiling. To recap the plan, we're encapsulating the upstairs living space with this material to create a directional vapor barrier that will prevent moisture from entering the wall cavities without trapping moisture inside the wall. The Marjex membrane allows the walls to dry towards the interior without letting moisture through the opposite way. This layer is airtight, so it serves as our primary air barrier on the ceiling and secondary on the walls. Building as airtight as possible improves comfort and the efficiency of our heating, cooling, and ventilation systems. This video walks through all the remaining details to complete the install, plus how we're detailing around windows with Ventrum tape. If you're trying to build as airtight and efficiently as possible, this is one you don't want to miss. Drywall literally starts tomorrow, which means we pulled an all-nighter.
We're down to our last couple pieces of Marjex, and I wanted to show you an example of how we cut around the electrical boxes. So typically we're running the Marjex over the boxes and then coming back and cutting them out. This piece specifically, we ran vertically, and the box is kind of putting a lot of tension right here on the Marjex. So I'm gonna cut this out before I tape it. You can usually just tape and then come back and cut out the boxes, but this case is a little bit different since we ran it vertically. You can basically see the electrical boxes through the Marjex. It's nice that it's white and slightly transparent so that you can see that. Then once you find your box, you basically run the knife through the inside portion of the box. Obviously you want to be careful of any wires that are in there, so I like to just do a little slit, carefully do another slit to make like a little L, open it up, see where those wires are, and then continue cutting. Our last and final piece upstairs.
For all these electrical boxes, we followed SIGA's advice for taping, which is a separate piece of tape on each side with a diagonal cut to allow them to fold over on each other at corners to make a continuous seal. We ripped the tape in half because the full width seemed kind of wasteful for such a small joint. It was easiest to make the diagonal cut once the tape was already in place. Elena's dad Mark took care of all the floor joint taping despite his robotic arm while recovering from a torn muscle. This would have been easier with the Reson 100 tape that has a split backer, but we didn't have enough of that for the floor perimeter, so Mark used Reson 60 in shorter lengths that were easier to manage. The key is getting a nice tight corner so that neither the drywall nor flooring put any stress on the tape there. While Mark worked on the floor perimeter joint, I was up on the scaffold taking care of all the can light recesses, starting with taping a little gasket around each wire penetration with a split piece of tape. Then I pulled out the 1.5 inch flaps we left on the edges of each box and lapped them over the ceiling layer, taping each joint. Again, I made little diagonal cuts extending inwards from each corner. I played around with the sequencing and direction of cuts to get the most sealed corner I possibly could. Circular boxes were definitely more of a pain because the only way to really seal around these is a whole bunch of smaller pieces of tape applied overlapping each other, and this is SIGA's official recommendation for doing a circular box. To mount the can lights themselves, my first thought was to use these metal frames everywhere so the drywall guys could route out the openings. That worked great for these first two in the bathroom, but you'll see in a second why I had to ditch this idea. So this can still slide at this point. I'm centered this way, and I just need to get myself centered the other way. And there's this little Phillips head screw that will lock in. That was easy. I went ahead and did the set in this bedroom as well. It was quite a bit more cumbersome than the bathroom with having to try to hammer with that rock wool up there as well. I'm thinking putting these guys up where the SIGA boxes and the rock wool are probably about the same labor as me just coming back to drill it with the hole saw later rather than having the drywall guys do it. That was kind of my intention with the frames, is a little bit of labor for me now saves more later, but it kind of turns out it's going to be the same. So I think I'm going to go back to sort of the original plan. I'm going to carefully check each one of the can locations with my dot laser, make sure I have a good mark on the floor, and I have plenty of margin in my SIGA box so that when I go through with the hole saw, I'm not gonna hit the edges of the box or the wire inside of it. When we initially laid all these out, we put some black plus marks on the floor with Sharpie, and someone in the YouTube comments that watched our electrical video noted that once drywallers come through, those are probably gonna get erased. They had a very good idea to use a drywall screw to mark, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm putting my dot laser on that same plus mark, seeing where it shines up In some cases, the rafters are a little bit too close to where my dot is supposed to go, so I'm going to shift the pattern just slightly. In this case, I have to squeeze these two lights over just like an inch or so I can get my 6-inch hole saw up there. I made a little cardboard template. This is 8 inches diameter, but you can see if I put this on the center, even with my 1-inch margin, because this is going to be a 6-inch hole saw, I'd be pretty darn close to hitting the edge there and ruining my air barrier at that point. And I'd also be close to hitting the wires far enough in that they would not be easily salvageable. And that's not good. So I'm going to shift this over to a safer margin. It looks like in this case, I need to come like, 2.5, 3 inches. You're never going to notice that in the grand scheme of the pattern, especially if I keep it all consistent and symmetrical. But this is why I'm doing this last minute check and making sure it's good without using the frames. Another reason why I wanted to use the frames was so I could do this ahead of time and not worry about getting the mark on the floor so precise. But I should also mention it's 3 o'clock in the morning and the drywallers are going to be here around 7. So I got to get these things situated and finalized and marked before they get here. So here's my original mark, here's my new mark, and I'm going to throw a drywall screw flush with the floor in that location. That way I will always know where that is, no matter how dirty it gets in here. Once drywall is hung, I'll come through with my dot laser, project that dot back up from the screw, and hopefully, cross my fingers, not hit anything important when I go through the drywall. And I'm not gonna barge in there either. I'm just gonna get right through the 5/8 and stop. Then we're ready to wire the lights up. One of the big benefits of these canless downlights is you don't actually need the mounting frame to support them. They can just clip right onto the back of the drywall and it's good to go. They're rated as airtight as well. I'm sure they passed third-party testing on that, but we're going a little bit extra, as we always try to do, going above and beyond with the build. And since we have the SIGA Marjex, that is why we wanted to do the 5-sided box where every one of these can lights are, as an extra layer of air barrier and to keep all the Marjex continuous. Another option would have been to put some flat 2x4s on the ceiling and fur it down 1.5 inches to give us a little cavity for the can light and the driver to sit in. And this is actually the recommended detail by SIGA, but we did not have the SIGA in our plans to begin with. So with all of the sloped ceilings that have to meet in here, it was not going to work out from the carpentry standpoint, unfortunately. I considered it heavily, but it just wasn't going to work. So we ended up taping the SIGA to the top plates to keep it all continuous. It turned out nicely. I think we did a really good install because we paid a lot of attention to detail to it, but it definitely was not an easy feat. So in the future, if we were using a product like SIGA on the interior, I'll definitely design it from the start and plan to fur the ceiling down to accommodate any sort of lighting. There were actually 2 different areas preventing the simpler option of furring down the ceiling. The first was here where these 2 sloped ceilings meet the flat ceiling, and second was accommodating the height of the window trim in the dormers as well as the wall cabinet that will be mounted here. It's been about 12 hours since I made that comment about drywall starting tomorrow. Drywall literally starts tomorrow, which means we pulled an all-nighter. It's 6 something in the morning right now, and we did in fact get everything done upstairs. We did not get the downstairs done quite at this moment, but we got all of the boxes cut out, taped, everything is sealed up and looks good. And we're pretty tired. Over the past couple days, it's been a lot of work. We've only gotten a few hours of sleep each night for like 3 days in a row, I want to say. He's been working on this so hard to try to make this deadline. So it's kind of a relief that the guys cannot get here this morning. There's a literal blizzard that just blew in out of nowhere. It was pouring down rain last night, and then it got cold enough at 6 in the morning or so for it to all turn to snow. So it's been sleeting, raining. Now it's like blizzarding outside. And I get a call from Dave, the drywall guy. He said, I don't think I'm gonna make it today. I was almost in 3 accidents on the road on the way there, and I turned around. He said he was driving up a hill and then there was a truck sliding back down the same hill in his lane backwards towards him. So he literally narrowly avoided that and was not going to make it today. So we are going to go get some sleep, but we just thought that was an interesting coincidence. Maybe someone's watching out for us. And luckily we did bust our butts. We're done. We don't have to do a lot more today, a few minor odds and ends, but other than that, we're ready for them to actually drywall the upstairs, which is good. It has been a whirlwind of the past couple days, so let's go get some sleep. All right, I've got a little bit of sleep in me. There's still some odds and ends to take care of before the drywall guys show up, but I thought I would take a little time to just talk about the install as a whole in general. Now that we're pretty much all wrapped up, I have just a couple minor little pieces of tape I got to put on. I think the install turned out really nicely. I'm really proud of it. Elena and her dad and my mom and me worked really hard for many hours putting this up. It was definitely labor intensive, but it actually went pretty quick. I mean, the fact that a few amateurs could do it in, I think we got it in less than 3 days of long work. I mean, actually, I think out of those 3 days, we worked over 40 hours for sure. So it was not an easy 3 days, but we did get it done. The taping is what took the longest time, cutting all the tape, applying it. It's really sticky, so it's very easy to misapply in some of the tighter areas like the corners, and that's where it's most important because that is where the drywallers will want to cut it. So here's the grand tour now that it's pretty much done. The main priority when we set out to put this on was to envelope the living space, and that is basically what we've done up here. This is technically our entry door, and outside that is technically garage space. So those walls were not in the plans. We were trying to form a complete envelope around the actual conditioned space so that our ERV and our heat pump can do a better job at what they're supposed to do with a really solid air barrier. The primary air barrier is our zip outside, but this is the secondary, and it is the primary though on the ceiling where we have a vented attic above. The can light boxes I think were a great solution to not having to fur our ceiling down and still leave the barrier continuous. Of course, the drywall fasteners will still penetrate this, but they will be going through the twinette that's applied to all the ceiling joists and studs. And after working with that, I can definitely tell you that is going to seal around the screw. That is some unbelievable stuff. We do have 3 of these attic spaces. 2 are accessed from the conditioned envelope. And so what we did here, we're treating these like every other exterior door or window and taping with Reson to the rough opening, and we'll then seal that door to the rough opening with Fentrum IS-20. As I said, SIGA was not in the original plan, so we were not able to leave the flap over the interior walls like they recommend in order to make it continuous. And with our construction of the structural ridge, none of these interior walls are load bearing, so we could have actually framed them after the fact, after the SIGA was all put up. But unfortunately, that was not the case. So what we're doing instead is using the Reson 100 tape to tape to the top plates, and that actually worked really well to get into that crease. It's a split backing tape and it's extra wide, so I was able to remove just one side of the backing, tape that to the stud, and use a squeegee to give that nice crease in the corner and tape the other piece to the SIGA. Elena and Mark did the bathroom. We left the back wall undone just because that's the shower and we didn't need to do it for drywall because they won't be drywalling that. But you can see we went up above our soffitted ceiling in the bathroom and you tape to the actual rafters, so we'll have about a 1 foot open space above our soffitted ceiling. So technically I did not need to build this airtight box for this sprinkler, but I didn't know that at the time. Elena taped this and she did a really nice job sealing to the top plates and sealing around where our sprinkler pipes penetrate the envelope right there. That was not an easy joint to take care of, but she was able to pull that off really well. Same deal right there. That's where the main riser goes up into the ceiling. Same philosophy with vertical breaks. We just taped to the vertical plate and continued on the other side of it. That includes areas like this little closet nook up there, which I taped, and that was interesting to say the least. Can't say it was the most comfortable thing I've ever done. And here's how our airtight sprinkler boxes turned out. I think that went really well. We wrapped the Reson into the sprinkler box, and then of course the box is made of zip and lumber and sealed with Lexel. The pipe penetrations are also sealed with Lexel. We'll just cut a circular hole out for the flush concealed plate cover, and we have an airtight sprinkler box that allows room air to get into it, so it actually works. We have a little bit of extra Marjex and we figure we might as well use it, so we are going to put some down in the garage. We have it of course on the garage ceiling, but we're going to do some of the garage walls too. We're going to do the walls right outside this entry door. That is the area where the most heat and moisture would accumulate coming from the garage anyway. So even though the drywall guys are coming soon, we told them we really only want the upstairs done for now. It's the only thing we're truly ready for. The garage still needs a little bit of work and some taping, and all of our cabinets and flooring is sitting down there, which makes it difficult to access all the different corners that we need to. So we'd like to get the drywall done up here, finished, prime painted. We can move all of our cabinets and flooring up here, and then we'll have the hangers come back again, hang the bottom, and then our finisher will come back and do that as well. We've had to do a couple things out of sequence like this, and as owner builders, it just comes with the territory, I guess. We have all of our materials and tools in here, so sometimes it does make it a little bit of a headache to work around, but it is what it is. The snow melted quickly, and the guys did make it to start hanging the next morning. I'll cover more of the details on drywall in its own video, but one of the important things to mention in regards to SIGA is I made sure everyone on the crew knew that routing out boxes on SIGA walls and ceilings was not going to happen, because if that router bit ever jumped outside of the box, it would ruin all the taping work on that box. So they took measurements and pre-cut all the openings before hanging the board, which worked out just fine. The time has come to finally finish the garage SIGA. So we're down here in the back garage doing the soffit right now. We're gonna wrap down and around this guy. And I think we're gonna go all the way down because there's not a great way to like terminate the soffit because of this stud bay here. So even if you stopped it right at that bay, technically it's still open to the air on the other side of the wall. So I'm thinking about just doing SIGA boom, boom on both sides of this wall, encapsulating it. That way our HVAC soffit and thus our ceiling is totally continuously encapsulated. I'm not sure if that makes sense or if that's a waste of material, but we might have enough to do that, so we'll see. We got the last few pieces on the ceiling in the front after we finally were able to move all of our cabinets away from that wall, so that was really cool. Definitely opens the space up a lot more over here. And we still have about 3/4 of one roll left. So after we do the soffit, we'll try to do as many of the exterior walls as we can. Let's let it a little bit off the red line because you're a hair short before.
Squeegee for the win.
Yep. Squeegee definitely helps get everything nice and tight. We ran out of twinette, unfortunately, but we have staples as a backup. I got a beautiful red laser line that all I gotta do is hold the top of this thing straight on it, just putting the top rows in. Left the bottom up about 1/4 inch. That way, if we have enough tape, we can tape it to the slab as well. I thought the staples would be a lot harder to keep everything flat, but it was actually easier on walls. You didn't need to worry nearly as much about accidentally sticking the Marjex and not being able to adjust it. For the flat ceilings though, twinette is definitely the way to go. And 1, 2, 3, 4. We are out of unison. Look at that. Oh, very good, girl. All right, so we got the soffit wrapped. Still got to do all the taping up there. Got to infill this one little piece here where I had to do some origami around these weird corners. But overall, we got the whole back garage covered. Just need to do the taping now. The original plan was to just do the garage ceiling to sort of encapsulate the upstairs living space, but we had some extra, and it was about a roll extra, I would say. So we decided to do some of these garage walls, but we're not going to be able to do all of them. We pretty much got to the end of that roll yesterday, all but a few feet, and we cannot do the stair wall above the stairs, and we can't do this wall either. This is the wall that the addition will eventually attach to anyway. And I was thinking if I had enough, I would do this interior wall too to sort of close off the soffit, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that either. We're just going to have to trim this top piece back, tape it to the top plate, and there will be sort of a discontinuity between these studs. The soffit wraps around there, and of course air can still flow through that rock wool, but there is rock wool there. It's not just an open cavity, so it is what it is. There is one piece I reserved though for the very last part because it's going to be the hardest one to put on, and that is the ceiling above the staircase. I have rigged up this little platform out of some scrap 2x8s from our footing forms, Luckily, we have this attic door opening that it can rest on over there. It's the same height as the floor platform, and then it's resting at the top of the stairs. I'm gonna put some paneling over top of this, and it will allow us to treat that as if it's normal ceiling height, so I can put ladders and stuff on top of this. That's the only way I could think of safely to get all the way up there and put that SIGA up on that slope ceiling to sort of complete the ceiling membrane. We're able to get these little front garage walls done now, and Elena is going to be the tape warrior for the rest of the day, taping up all of our electric boxes and the edges of all the door jambs and everything else. Quite a bit of taping still yet to do, but I think we're gonna get there. Drywallers start tomorrow. We're off to the races for the hardest piece yet. I actually think the staples are an easier way to install stuff like this where it's kind of tough. Like I'm trying to keep this thing nice and centered. Using the twinette, you got one shot basically to hit that tape just right. And if you need to make a minor adjustment, it's kind of a pain to pull it all off. So staples are nice because I mean, even if you do need to make an adjustment, it takes a second to pry out one of these little staples. The scaffold setup's gonna make it really nice for painting and stuff too. Definitely glad I took the time to build it. I've been meaning to do this, but just have not had the time. Now here's the fun part, using a ladder on the scaffold. Feels like the scaffold's just another floor platform though, so just can't think about the fact there's like a 10-foot drop right beneath it. Definitely wanna stay in the middle of this platform because there's a bit of an overhang for the panels on the edges. You can definitely feel that when you step off the main support. Pretty tough to keep the steering completely straight. I'll have to try to veer off one way or the other. My arms are getting tired holding this roll up. Oh my gosh. All right, it was getting way too wrinkled trying to straighten that out and keep that on track. So I just cut it up there. New approach, I staple it all along this side and I'm gonna then tighten it going this way. Well, it was a little bit of a pain, but she's all taped up, ready to go. Small hot pocket break, and we're back at it. I went ahead and did the seam at the top here where I put my knife in the groove created by the double top plate and trimmed it there. So there's about 1.5 inches of SIGA hanging down, and then just used the Reson 60 to tape it to the top plate. We're in the home stretch. All we need to do is this front wall here, add a couple pieces above the garage door just so it looks nice. Not that it's really doing all that much. Get all that taped and then tape the soffit in the back. The drywallers are coming tomorrow around 7 in the morning. Last time this was happening, we were up till 7 in the morning putting the SIGA up. So we are looking for a not repeat of that. It's roughly 8 o'clock right now. I would say we have a good solid 3 hours of work ahead of us. If we call it quits before midnight tonight, I think that's a win. Well, it is way past midnight. Elena headed in at like 11:30-ish or something like that. I was able to finish this front garage wall, which is very tedious going above these doors that took forever. It's just very time consuming to get it nice and tight in the corners and making sure that when the drywall goes up that it doesn't rip or puncture at the corners. Then I got a little bit sidetracked doing some last minute blocking before the drywall goes up that needs to be there for the stair handrail. Anyway, I still got to do the whole backside now, just that soffit and a few ceiling penetrations for the sprinklers and boxes. So probably another 1.5 hours of taping. I'll get a couple hours of sleep at least before the drywall guys get here, but wish me luck. Just put the very last piece of tape on the soffit, finally. And take a look out the window. That is in fact the sunrise. The time is 6:28. I would not have guessed that another all-nighter doing SIGA Marjex was in the fortune, but It is what it is. This stuff just takes so long to tape. You think it'll go pretty quickly. How hard could it be? But to get it to look good and sit right, it just takes forever. It's finally done now. We are ready for drywall. This time around, there was not a surprise blizzard, so the drywall hangers did indeed show up right around 7:30. So I got a brief snooze in before they showed up. Then once they got going and I got some footage, I took a longer nap. Because of all the ceiling penetrations in the utility room, plus the fact that all our tools were piled in there, I told the guys not to bother with the ceiling in there and that I'd hang that myself. So that was the second to last bit of SIGA to finish up. Just got 2 runs to put up in here, but the hard part is going to be cutting it around all of these duct penetrations in this corner. I've already started this one for the dehumidifier, and I just got a little bit left to go on that. Then we are ready to hang some drywall in here. Whenever I had to cut holes in before hanging the sheet, I'd measure from the walls to the center of the pipe and transfer that onto the Marjex. Then sketch a circle about 1/2 inch larger than the pipe diameter at that point. That would give me about a 1/4 inch clearance around the outside of the pipe. At the edges of the ceilings, I had to rip down some Reson 100 to get it to fit above the plywood on the top plate. This is the last major piece of SIGA that we have to put on. I just still have the little downstairs bathroom here left. Not my absolute cleanest job with this wrinkle up here, but it was so hard with all these pipes getting the sheet around them. But overall, I think it sealed up pretty well. Taped it all to the top plates. That's the best we can do because I already had the plywood on. Unfortunately, I didn't have SIGA in the plans when I put this plywood on. So now this is finally ready to hang some sheetrock on. In the downstairs bath now, this is the last piece of Marjex I've yet to put up. This is also probably the biggest discontinuity in the whole plan because we softened this down before this plan for SIGA. And the existing SIGA out in that back garage comes to the top plate here, 1 foot above where we softened it down. So I'm gonna put it on the ceiling here just to try to help keep moisture from coming into the ceiling from this bath. Don't think it's gonna really do all that much, but all around this bath, it's 1 foot higher and there's no good way to sort of continue the SIGA through the studs up and connect it to that top piece out in the utility room and back garage here. So we'll just do it anyway, just for completeness. And this is the very last piece of Marjex. I'm kind of looking forward to this. Beautiful. All right, last pieces of drywall going on down here now. Fast forward a little bit and we've got our drywall upstairs primed and painted, and it's finally time to seal up these windows for good. Now the first thing I did was trim off all the shims with a utility knife and then take some expanding foam, some low expansion foam meant for windows and doors, and filled around the whole perimeter of the window. But that is not the last treatment this window is getting for air sealing. I primarily put the insulation in to act as insulation and not the primary air seal because there's discontinuities at every shim. So inevitably there's going to be some air leakage around those shims. I wanted something that bridges the face frame of the window to the air barrier continuously. In this case, it's going to be our Reson tape that connects to our Marjex on the wall. So we're bridging window to Reson tape to Marjex in one continuous plane all the way around the perimeter of the window. And that's gonna be accomplished with SIGA Fentrum IS-20. It is a super adhesive tape that is meant for this exact purpose, air sealing windows. I just wiped off all the drywall dust that was on this sill, and I went ahead and made myself a little jig out of some scrap wood. The end of this jig is the thickness of my window trim. So if I butt that up right there, that is where my window trim will land, except I will be shimming it up just a little bit because I'm going to be building the trim as one piece and fitting it in the rough opening. So this will give me my absolute minimum distance, and I'm going to scribe a pencil line all the way around the perimeter of this frame to tell me where roughly I need to end the tape at. Now ideally you'd want to be getting like 5/8 of an inch onto the window frame. That's what the tape backer is split at. I'm not going to be getting nearly that much. I'll probably be getting about 1/4 inch, but I don't want the tape to show above the trim. So I'll run the tape just above my pencil line here, which is where my window trim will end, and then that will end up getting finished with a bead of sealant to hide the edge of the tape at the end of the day. Now that I have a good line to follow all the way around the perimeter, I can start actually applying. This is what the roll looks like. They're 25 meters long. The thin portion does not have a backer on it when it comes off the roll. It's just pre-folded, with the wide portion that goes onto the rough framing. That obviously has a backer on it. So I'm just gonna stick this little thin portion just above my line all the way across. I'm not gonna worry about the corners yet. I'm gonna stay just, an inch or so in from each corner. Just gonna do all 4 straight sides, and then I'll make special pieces for each corner. I'm gonna cut this to length first, so I'm not trying to fight with this roll the whole way down. Just got it stuck at one end temporarily. So I'll just start right down here. This adhesive is tenacious for sure. Squeegee helps get a real nice tight corner here that the trim can butt right up against the window. Helps to even have it kind of where you want it before you even pull the backer off. That way you can slide the tape as needed. And as soon as you're pulling that backer off, you got pressure on it to activate the adhesive. Once you squeegee that thing out, that tape is not going anywhere. With all 4 sides done, now we are ready for the corners. I started off by cutting a bunch of these sections, roughly 8 inches long each, and this is honestly probably the easiest corner detail we've done yet. The only cut we have to make in this is just through the 5/8 section, about midway through, and that's gonna be the piece that overlaps at the corner. Now the space against the frame is all sealed up. It's just a matter of peeling back the backing very slowly and carefully. Again, keeping the squeegee in there to keep a nice tight corner. And there we go, there's the corners. I did throw another little piece of tape here at the edge just to help bridge the gap between the fence room and the reson. In some areas there was a little bit of rough framing exposed and a little bit of gap in the corner there, so I just went ahead and bridged that. And that guy is ready for window trim now. That is a fully perimeter air sealed window. I do not see how a draft could ever make it past this window, both between it being a tilt turn style window and this perimeter seal. This is one airtight window. Now I need to repeat the same steps on the remaining 5 window units up here. That sounds like a mini montage. And with this last window, that is a wrap on our entire SIGA system, both the Marjex, the reson tape, and the Fentrum IS-20 around the windows. We should have a pretty darn airtight house now. We will know in the future because we will be getting a blower door test once everything is all said and done, all of our doors are in, and that will be the moment of truth to see how well all of this effort actually worked in keeping an airtight house. We have no clue really what to expect, but the blower door test will be the final say. Regardless, I'm glad we did it. I think it's going to be a great addition for the comfort of our house. No drafts around windows, no air leakage through the ceiling, and it's something that you can't go back and do, as I said in the first video. It's not like updating the color of a room or maybe switching out your countertops. Changing up your wall assembly behind your drywall is pretty much a non-starter, so it's something that you want to do while construction is going on. If you're trying to build the most airtight and efficient house out there, this is definitely a system you want to check out. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.